Welcome back to BCA Podcast. And this week, I have I guess we're good friends now that we live together for a week. But Moosie is the owner of Catch and Release Camo, and we have had him on in the past. And we said last year we'd circle around and talk about some of his hunting stories. You've hunted all over the world, haven't you, Moose?
I have, yep.
So we're going to hear a little bit about hunting out west and a little bit about hunting Alaska, and maybe you've done Africa as well.
Yep, Africa, New Zealand. I've done a little bit everywhere. So
Yeah, yeah. So welcome to you, Moosie, and thanks for giving me time last minute. I'm sitting here looking at $400 I owe you, just so you know.
oh yeah, well we'll square up sometime. I'm not worried
I
about money.
I know. I just need to hit. I need to send the Venmo over, and I just haven't done it yet. So
Yeah, that's all good. So it was funny because well, you hit me up today and asked if I had some time, and I'm like, I never have time, so let's just do it right now, right? So, but I did. I started jotting down, and I actually started listening to last year's podcast. It
oh
was
yeah,
exactly a year ago.
you're kidding me.
It was July, yeah, of 23 that we
Wow.
had that. And I also looked at the time. I thought it was pretty funny. It was 58 minutes and 60 seconds. And so I'm like, isn't that 59 minutes? But I don't know. I was never good at math, but I guess Spotify's not good at math either though. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, if, we try and get 45 minutes to an hour, and I know you well enough to know that we could probably talk a lot more than that. But
oh, for sure.
um,
But nobody wants to listen to me talk too long. I know that.
yeah,
So
well, that and you got a family to get home to and a second business to run. And
dude, there's always something going on. So, but no, it's good to hear from you and stuff, and especially since and with my operation this year, I was kind of laid up for a little bit. I had open heart surgery and it kind of put me out for a little bit. And now I'm just getting back into, jogging again a little bit and just trying to get out and about. I'm working full time. So like I was telling you earlier, I'm only working 100%, where I'm usually working 150%. So it's shorter hours, it's 16-hour days instead of 20. I'm trying to take it easy a little bit, but
yeah, yeah, I'm sure is uh I mean, right off the bat, you're talking about jogging and trying to get back into shape.
yeah.
That's probably, I mean, for a lot of us in the East, we we don't have any concept of what it's like to hunt out west at elevation, and the cardio, the need for cardio is so much more there, I would imagine.
Oh, it's tremendous, and we talked about it in the last podcast just a little bit. We touched base on it, and I'm going to say you have to be in shape. I mean, there's no, hey, I'm going to try to get a little bit in shape. Just depending on where you're hunting and what you're doing, and I got stories on goat hunting and sheep hunting and other stuff, and it's just, but you also have to be mentally strong and not smart, because I've never claimed to be a smart guy, but but mentally strong, just saying, hey, look. I can do that, because whenever you're sitting on a edge of a canyon and you're looking across the way and it's going to take you a whole day to get over there and you have to, circumvent the trees and the cliffs and stuff, mentally you're going to get shut down and saying, well, maybe I can't do that. And then you're not going to do it, and and so it's sometimes better to have a buddy with you that's going to help motivate you but if they're out of shape too, they're going to be like, why don't we just go hunt over here instead, and you lose a lot of hunting opportunity, and
Yeah,
really, being in the right place is key to being successful. And sometimes you just have to say, you know what, I'm just going that way, but you have to be in shape to do it, mentally and physically as well. So
yeah, yeah. That's there is a mental toughness to it for sure, where you're saying, okay, we're going. We're gonna
yeah.
go, and even after the kill, right? I mean, to pack stuff out is
Oh, yeah, and it's, and that's the reason why they say I know a lot of states, I was up in Alaska, and they say the horns are the last thing, or the antlers are the last thing that you take out, and the reason being is, you pack out a moose, which I've done up in Alaska, you make that first trip across the tundra or whatever, and you're like, "I'm tired." Yeah,
yeah,
so just all the, backcountry stuff that you're doing, and so but it's, as much as you want the meat, usually the antlers are your motivation. So if you leave the
right.
motivation to the end, it's kind of like, yeah, just something to keep you going. Just give that little extra little bit of spark to it. So
Yeah, yeah. So I think we might have talked a little bit about your Alaska trip on the last podcast, or maybe touched on it. I don't know, but tell about that trip, that story.
So I had a couple of trips. One trip, so bear hunting, you have to have like brown bear, you have to have a guide up there, right?
Hmm.
Or you have to have family member up there. So my dad actually moved to King Salmon, and once he got his residency and I was able to go, I actually went up there and I killed a brown bear. We took a boat into the back country, and it was raining uh, and to go back there. And Alaska's tough. I mean, it's big country. But we knew, we just start going up some of these water draws and stuff. And anyway, I ended up seeing a brown bear and shot it right off the boat. The boat can't be moving by propelled by the engine, so we killed the engine and we let it stop, and then we just couldn't close the gap otherwise. And so there I am sitting and the boat's going up and down, and you have to get close enough. And it's just it's another mental game, right? So you just have to just dial in and get, and shot it and it fell right there. It was a pretty fun trip. So that was my one trip when my dad was up there. But when I was 30, I'm 51 now. When I was 30, my dad turned 60, so we did a 60-30 trip and
Hmm.
went up there and we did a moose and caribou hunt. And that was I mean, just the whole adventure. I could take hours just talking about that trip, but just to kind of break it down for people that have never experienced something like that, you have to plan. You can only bring so much weight on the plane, to go into the back bush. And they take these seaplanes and land you on a lake in the back country, and so you can only take 100 pounds, which you're like, oh, that's a lot of weight, but that's all your food. That's all, everything
Wow.
you have. So you're shaving ounces. Every ounce matters on that. And stuff. And so yeah, we actually had, and then they came back in. We did the moose hunt. We saw a moose on the way in from the airplane, but you can't hunt that day. You have to hunt the next day.
Yep.
And so, yeah, you set up and you're in bear country. Grizzly bears are going by your tent, and little foxes and other stuff. And you're just like, man, I didn't even know which direction. Like, I was like, if something happens, how do you get out of here? Like, I
Yeah.
honestly, I didn't know enough about. I was like, I would have figured it out and made it out, but at 30 now, I just crawl up by a tree and sleep, I
Die.
guess. Yeah, right. But no, it was a lot of fun. So I ended up getting a moose. My dad didn't. I got a moose, but we ended up, sadly, we lost the meat on it. I shot it,
Yep.
and the moose just took off, and we couldn't find it. And it ended up not going far, but just kind of hit this little ravine thing. And then so the next day we found it and we started packing it out. It was a hot year,
Mhm.
and so we were packing out within a day, smelly meat. I mean, it,
Oh,
it
wow.
was it was getting bad. So we put it under. We built those up with tree branches, and just to elevate it and then put it in the shade and try to get as cool as we could. And we had sat phones, and we called up and said, hey, we have to get this meat out of here so we can salvage it. And so they came out. They were out the next day, and but yeah, even whenever they were flying back, they said, yeah, this meat's bad. So they called up Fish and Game and said, hey, we have all the meat. This hunter, because they'll confiscate everything if
Yeah.
you break
Yeah.
these laws. And the whole thing is they don't want somebody to shoot something, leave the meat back there for a day or two, and say, well, I just didn't pack it out because, and that's just it. I mean, ultimately we're going out there. We want to eat what we
Yeah.
harvest. And but so yeah, so we did that. And then the fishing game actually met them right on the dock whenever they came out, and
Mm.
they checked the meat, said, yep, they packed everything out. It wasn't from lack of trying. We
Right.
tried our
Right.
best, and it just didn't work out. And they had some guys with sled dogs there, and they took the meat, and off they went. And then
Wow.
from there they flew us into another spot, and we did some caribou hunting. And it was a bad year for caribou hunting, but we ended up seeing herds coming through. Like all of a sudden, behind these trees across this tundra, you see 50 to 75 critters that you don't normally see coming through there. I mean, it's pretty neat. It's just being able to watch and see that. So
Yeah.
and it was still early. It was, I think, first part of September, so it was still, and it was hot that year. And so they were still, I shot one in velvet, a small
Mhm.
one. I mean, it
Wow.
looks like a great big deer rack is what it is. But so one day I said, I'm going to go back and do it again. And
Yeah.
but I did get a moose and I got a caribou. My dad got a caribou. So
Wow.
yeah.
What, so what, like, what caliber rifle, what rifle were you using? If you're watching weight, you're probably concerned with, you can't take a backup gun or anything like that, and
No, and we didn't. I mean, you could, just depending on the weight, but we didn't. we each brought a 300 Win Mag. That's kind of our gun of choice, and but yeah, it was, you bring enough shells, you bring that, and it starts adding up. That's 12 pounds right there, and then
Yeah.
you got, from there. And for me, the most important things, you have your spotting scope, you have your binoculars. Optics is real important for me.
Yep.
And then you take a tent, you share the tent, lightweight stove, and but it's really, you have to pack and repack. It's almost like going on a backpacking trip, which we could talk about too. Sheep hunting, goat hunting.
Yeah.
You really have to watch. And we had a water pump, so, or just a handheld water pump, so we weren't worried about water, which is the heaviest,
Hmm.
out of everything. But yeah, you still got to bring the pump along, and dehydrated food, and just hope for the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole nother adventure, and at the time, I mean, that was back when I owned Hunt Talk, and I had the forums, and I was posting things all the time, and a lot of guys with great experience. I mean, I'm not new to hunting by any means.
Right.
I've done a little bit, but it's still just a different experience. And everywhere I've hunted, like I said, you hunt New Zealand and Africa and Idaho and wherever, and it's all different, but it's the same. It's kind of the same mentality. You go in, you layer when you wear clothes. You kind of hunt. Yeah, I guess kind of
Yeah.
hunt the
Yeah.
same, but it is still all different.
Yeah. Do you have a
Yeah.
brand of clothes that you prefer?
I heard about this company, Catch and Release. I don't know if you've heard of them or not, but
Yeah, I think they've taken a lot of my money,
yeah,
and
that's that.
I am pleased to give it to them.
Yeah, no, they shouldn't have taken that much. I hear they're very affordable and
They
stuff.
are extremely affordable. I just want at least one of everything they have, so
Yeah, no, they're coming out with some other stuff,
yeah.
but yeah, no, it's and that was back in the day when, before I had a camouflage company, and before I had any of that. I always say that's back in the day when I thought I had money. I
Mm,
I was traveling, and I mean, I hunted, like I said, I hunted New Zealand and Africa and Alaska, and I'm just like, traveling all over. I've hunted probably 13, 14 different states,
yeah,
mostly all in the West, but yeah, it's yeah, it's just a little bit of difference. So you just kind of pack in whatever you can, wear
sure.
a lot of different stuff. And even now owning a company, I'm not a fashion sense as far as, I don't care what I look like. I want light, quality, comfortable clothes, and so that's what I make, and that's what I sell.
Yeah, yeah. Is that why you got the Trump sneakers?
You know, I got those. So it's funny. So Trump, they just had the attempted assassination of him, and all the conflict and stuff that goes with that.
Yeah,
And, America's kind of split, but I like controversy, and I like, different stuff and rallying people up. And all my Facebook friends anymore don't even believe anything I say, but I posted pictures out there, and I don't know if you've seen it with the shirt and the hat and stuff. And I
yep,
said, hey, I just bought my apparel so I can go to California, and I got
yeah,
a California trip coming up, is what I said. And anyways, my dad called me. He's down in the South now. He's down in Alabama, Arkansas, one of those southern states. But he, but he called up, and he was like, "Hey, I'm a little bit concerned about you going to California." I'm like, "Dad, that was a joke." I was like, "Of all people, you should know that was a joke." And but yeah, it's one of those that,
yeah,
I got my beliefs in what I do, and I don't get too riled up about that kind of stuff, but I definitely have my druthers on who I'd like to see,
sure.
at the helm. And but I do like watching how fired up other people
Yep,
get.
yep. And you
So,
definitely have a sense of humor for it too, so
oh yeah, we
yeah.
try to get along, but I know one day, I mean, I'm gonna be wearing that thinking I'm funny, and somebody's gonna just clock me, but they're gonna hit me with their purple purse. The guy is, and I'm so
You'll
I'm not.
never have to work again.
Yeah, I won't. Yeah, so probably my follow up through that probably will kind of negate my lawsuit, but it'll.
That's true, that's true.
So, but
So,
no, I've never really been worried about that.
yeah. So, Alaska, you're packing in. Was it the same on your Africa trip? Do you is
Yeah,
it
so
same sort of
Af
deal?
Africa was a little bit different because we hunted. I mean, we had pretty nice accommodations over there, and we had room, and we could, it's one of those, you could pay. You weren't limited on the stuff. But we went during our summertime, which was their kind of their winter, colder time.
Mhm.
You don't think of Alaska as being cold, but or Africa, sorry, as being cold, but Um, yeah, when I went to Africa, we brought quite a bit of stuff, and yeah,
Yeah.
it was packing was a little bit different on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a fun trip. We got to, and we actually ate the game. People talk about because you can't bring the game home with you, but you can eat, stuff there. So we really ate what the people before us shot.
Yep.
So they had all that stuff processed. So we got to eat, blesbuck and heart of beast and
Mhm.
and warthog. I mean, I was so excited to eat warthog. It was a little bit too greasy for me. Like I just wasn't.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
didn't taste like in my head. I'm just a huge bacon fan. I mean, I could eat bacon wrapped bacon all day long, um, but it was yeah. So it was a little bit different, but yeah, the accommodation you get spoiled. You hunt Africa one time, and you realize, I mean, it's those guys. I mean, they lay out
Yeah.
nice tables for you, and they follow you around with fans if you want to. I mean, they really take care of you there. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a nice spoiled hunt where the other place you're kind of eating off of, out of a dehydrated bag to,
Right. But you're paying for it too, though,
You
for
are.
the
Yep,
safari.
yep, you are, and that's, and we bought ours on a silly cheap, hunt. We went to one of those banquets, and,
Mhm.
and they had this African hunt, and it was I think it was a 5-day hunt. They offered one hunter, one non-hunter, and nobody bid on it, and they just kept, you open up the bid at 10 grand or whatever, and stuff, and we're like, yeah, that's not our money, and then they drop it to 5 grand and 2 grand, and then they did something like they opened it up to like $400. And so I'm just like, I raised my hand and I'm like, yeah, I'll bid on that. And they're like, nobody else bid. And it was a zero reserve deal. So we got two hunters and two non-hunters for like $400 for 5 days. And we each got two animals.
Oh,
And
man.
then, but the thing is, I mean, once they get you over there, you're spending some money, right? So we got some two plains game animals, I think an impala and I don't know, maybe a Blesbuck or something. But then once you get over there, you're like, then you start buying other animals,
Yeah.
So you're over there. And I ended up shooting a giraffe.
Really?
Yeah, so that was when I was over there, the opportunity came up, and so I shot a big black giraffe, and so yeah, that was fun. It's just different, And I was tempted to shoot. Um, I like cats, I like cougars and well, I guess a different meaning, right? So, but, mountain puma, let me call them mountain puma,
Yes.
not cougars. Right? But yeah, so so I wanted to shoot a lioness while I was over there and, and stuff. And I think at the time, that was '06. I think it was like 6 grand or something like that to go, so and people are like, you just, it's pay to play, which it is. I mean,
Yeah.
they literally raise, these things are and stuff, or take you out and hunting, and that's just how the game is. But I ended up shooting a giraffe instead, which is, depending on how you look at things, it's either I'm just a brutal guy, or I'm just take advantage
Yeah.
of the situations I'm in. So
Hmm.
but yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's just experiences that you never. And I'll tell you, when I shot the giraffe, I thought, I don't want to be in a pull up and make it feel like a farm hunt, where
Right,
you
right.
walk up and they're feeding this thing, and because that's what I'm picturing in my head, I'm like, that's not going to be. But we actually really had to hunt for them and get them out. They were in the trees and we couldn't find them, and then I'm like, okay. After a while, I'm like, all right, are they just driving me in circles? What's going on here? So, but yeah, we finally they kind of we kind of kicked them out. They went out to the open, and then from there, then you can see them for 100 miles away. But went up to them, and I put down a draft that we were after, and they got on the satellite phone, made a phone call, and man, within 15 minutes, there was about 15 guys in the back of two trucks, and they just started sharpening their knives and going to town. So it was pretty
Wow.
awesome and impressive to see that the system that they had in place.
Yeah. So if you're shooting for really for the next group, you didn't probably did you get to try or taste
I I
giraffe?
didn't. One of the guys before us shot a giraffe,
Yep.
and we ended up shooting. We ended up eating a little bit of that too. So,
Yeah.
and it was good. It's it's how they cook it and how everything else. I mean, like I said, everything was really good. I couldn't tell big difference between the meats and stuff. And
Yeah.
I've eaten meat everywhere. I mean, it's but it's yeah, it was good. They cook it up with some good spices, and
Mhm.
yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. But man, that definitely filled up a truck bed
Yeah.
full of, just with the neck meat alone, right? So,
Wow. Wow.
but
What what country were you in?
South Africa. So,
Okay.
yep, I just went to the South Africa. So we flew into Jayburg, Johannesburg
Yep.
down
Yep.
on the tip, and then from there we drove, and I can't remember. I think it's about a 3 hour drive or something from there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of everything in South Africa is private land. Everything
Okay.
is fenced in, and it's a different fenced in than like Texas. I mean, I've hunted Texas too, right? I've hunted different ranches. I've hunted, 400-acre ranch and a 400,000 acre. I mean, it's just but eventually you're going to see a fence. You're going to see
Yeah.
a fence
Yeah.
with something on all that stuff. And in South Africa, when you start going to Namibia or Zimbabwe or all those other places that you can go, it's more some jungle hunting and some other stuff. There's different opportunities, which I haven't done it, so I'm not going to talk
Yeah. Yeah.
exclusively on those, but which I'd like to go back. And once I did Africa, I thought, man, this is something that I want to go back on. But even that cheap trip that we bought, it was still for the plane ticket is $2,000.
Yep.
To ship my animals back, I think I spent $3,800.
Wow.
And stuff, and then you got and we upgraded the two non-hunters to another hunter, and then made from 5 days to 7 days. And
Hmm.
7 days goes by so fast.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
one of those that I'm like, man, I'd love to come over here for 10 days. Just an extra couple of days makes a big difference.
Yeah.
But we got to see they took us to the different and you've been over in Africa, right?
Hmm.
So
Yep.
yeah, you've been over there and done some trips, and but they took us all to the local markets and different stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just cool, kind of, and me being my sarcastic self, I was probably a little ruder than I should have been, and just joked around and negotiated. Because for me, it wasn't about money, right? I mean, it's at that point, I wanted to buy some souvenirs, so I would haggle because that's the thing to do.
Yep.
It's just like when you're in Tijuana, right? Like
Yep.
you want to haggle with them, and so I did, and did some haggling, and then I ended up paying them more than what we
Right.
negotiated anyway. It's not about that. It's hardworking people. They're trying to do their best, and you know, they're going to negotiate a price that they're fair. That of
Yeah.
course they're going to want to get the best bang for the buck, and stuff. And but yeah,
Yeah.
it was just a fun trip all around. You just every day it felt good. So I'd highly recommend Africa. I mean, dollar for dollar, you get more critters there than. I mean, I was looking up an elk hunt today, and I think it was like 18 grand for an elk
Oh.
hunt. I'm like, really? Like, and it's, and I don't know. It's just, from a guy like me that doesn't have a lot of money, I save my money and go on these trips and do different stuff. And it's just when you see those dollars, it affects my pocketbook,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
like I got okay, I could put that on 2.5 credit cards and play that game. But yeah, dollar for dollar. I mean, you can go over there and I don't know what I spent total. I'm gonna guess probably around 7,000 probably at a time, counting the airfare and stuff. And yeah, maybe 8 grand. But I think I shot 8 animals. So you're talking 8 or 9 animals, and you could shoot an impala. I'm sure the price went up, but I think I paid 350 and I shot two impala and stuff. So
Yeah. It's the price of flights are what's killer now. So from JFK to we fly direct to Dakar in Senegal. And it's an 8-hour flight. It used to be like 800 bucks. Now it's close to 2000. In fact, in the spring when I went, it was more than 2000.
geez, yeah,
Yeah, and then the distance from JFK to Dakar is the same as Dakar to South Africa to Johannesburg.
yeah.
I mean, it's a long flight.
Yeah,
I
and
don't think people know how big Africa is.
yeah. Oh, it's huge, and and you think, yeah, the same thing. We landed in Dakar and stuff, and they were telling us stories about people. They try to escape. They try to get on the planes and grab
Yeah.
the wheel wells, and they'll end up going up in the wheel and dying.
Yep.
And stuff, and then people are like, oh, they got out of the country because they didn't come back. Well, no, they died. And
Right.
it's which is a sad state, but yeah, so when I flew over there, it was such a long trip, and it was, and I've flown. My mom's Swiss. I've flown to Switzerland. I've been all over Europe and
Mhm.
Italy and England and all those places, and so I'm used to that and the 8 hour time difference. And growing up, I've done a lot of traveling, but yeah, when I went to Africa, I was like, dang, because you're thinking, okay, we're there, we're
Yeah.
here now, and you're like, no, we're not.
No.
So, I did take my first sleeping pill though on the way back. A
Mhm.
buddy of mine, he brought it because he was like, "Oh, it's such a great trip," and that was the first time I ever took a sleep pill. I thought I could get addicted to these, so
Yeah.
just sleep through everything. But yeah, no, it was a great trip, and it was and it's exhausting, right? Because there's so many new things, and you're like a kid just trying
Yeah.
to absorb it all and just try to see and try to make the best. And so your long days, and a lot of times they're traveling at night.
Yep.
They're just you trying to go from one concession to another and doing stuff. And but as
Yeah.
relaxing as you hope it is, it's still exhausting. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like sheep and goat exhausting. That's a whole different, physical attribute, on you, which we could
Yeah.
transition into. But it's it is just yeah, it's a fun, exhausting trip. So I'd love to go back, and of course I'd like to go shoot a few more things I didn't shoot, but I'd even like to do a safari just to go see things up close.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you so you shipped it all back. What was the taxidermy bill like?
So my taxidermy bill didn't happen. So I actually shipped my giraffe back, and we salted everything, and it stays forever. The
Mhm.
salt stuff, and so I'm just trying to think. So I think that was in '06, and just 2 years ago, last year, I had my taxidermist. He's been bugging me forever. He says, "You got to get that giraffe." Finally, he said, "Hey, look, let's just get it tanned. Let's see what it looks like to make sure it's still good." And so, we're talking 14 years
Yeah.
later
Yeah.
and stuff. And so he actually tanned the hide, and the hide's good. So,
Wow.
but it cost me 2 grand, to just to tan it and stuff. And now, and I can get it mounted now for another 4 or 5 grand. But one, I don't have a place to put it.
Right.
Even in my shop, with my camo shop, I'd love to put it there. I just don't have the room. I don't have the real estate to do it. So, I think over the next couple of years, so I may end up with a little bit different shop. And my house, I got a small house. I don't have the big vaulted ceilings and stuff. But
Yeah.
um, so yeah, so it's kind of so I have it tanned and just kind of sitting there figuring out. So, and I ended up not mounting everything else. Everything else is salted down that I need, and I did some skull stuff, just to have the
Yep.
skulls. And but yeah, the taxidermy bill comes after that too, right? That just gets
Oof.
expensive. It's just
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just kind of like a click next, type deal. And you just like, okay, well, I bought the trip, and then I got to fly over there and fly everything back, and then but it's
Yeah. You're
it's
applying for
definitely
new
different.
credit cards now. I
Oh
need two
yeah,
more credit cards and
I know. I got to get them in my kids' names and everything else. But
wow. Were there issues taking firearms over? What was that like?
no, no, there's not. You slip some guys some money, and they get you through your
Oh,
lines
yeah.
really quick. So it's it's like going to Mexico or anything else. No, we didn't have any problems. They actually the outfitters, most outfitters pick you up right from the airport. So they're used to customs, they're used to hunters.
Mhm.
So we're big in their economy, and stuff. So they're gonna look out for us. And it's pretty obvious. I mean, we're just, some white trash guys come in there, and we're pretty obvious that we're hunters. We're all camoed up, and they're
Yep.
like, "Who are these crazy guys?" Well, we know we're going to take their money, right? So yeah, we didn't have any problems. We shipped, and you have to have your guns checked and this and that, but it's not a big ordeal. I mean, it's not as big as you think.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I've flown with guns before too. When I went to Alaska, when I went to New Zealand, and you fly around, and it's one of those. I always joke, right, and stuff, and sometimes those situations, the guys are a little bit more serious than others.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's still, went up to Canada, did the same thing. You fly guns up there. Canada's probably the hardest out of
Yeah, I was
everything.
gonna say Canada's pretty tough. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've done bear hunting up there and gone up on some bird hunts and stuff. And so now I'm just like, I just leave my gun behind. And it's like, I go up there and use a gun when I get up there. The outfitter, you can get an outfitter allocated gun or whatever. And
Yeah. Yep.
because I don't care. I mean, I'm not partial to my gun. I don't have anything that I'm like Sweet Betsy or whatever that I have to use. It's, I just want to get up there and enjoy the experience and have
Yep.
fun and knock some stuff down. But
Cool. So, you mentioned the difficulty of sheep hunting. Uh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
you think that's the hardest hunting there is?
So for me, it was, I've done a lot of hunting, as we talked about in different stuff. What makes it so hard is the remoteness of where I hunted. There's some sheep hunts that you can drive to, and over here there's your Waihees, where you can go get Idaho actually has California bighorn and Rocky Mountain bighorn, and I did the Rocky Mountain, and they're once in a lifetime tags, but the unit that I hunt, you're driving in, and you're an hour on a dirt road to get in, which isn't a big deal. You're in a car, who cares? But you park at the end of the road, and then it's 12 miles just to get into the unit, so you're hiking, and you're uh and and I've always mentioned this. The biggest thing is just how do I stay alive? From the not that you're scared of dying or anything, but it's just okay. You need to look at your different your different opportunities for water. Like how do you get water? So sometimes you're on the top of a ridge, you look down, you're like, oh, there's a lake. How do I get to it? I mean, it's 1,000 feet
Mm,
down, and you're like, oh, it's 1,000 feet. Well, then you got to get back up. And how do you spend a day, hunting time, or it's
yeah.
just logistics you have to figure out. And you're talking 7, 8 pounds per gallon of water, and you're going through a couple gallons, a day, just depending on how hot and how far you're going. So it's just a lot of just preparation and stuff for it. So where I hunted, yeah, it was a pretty, I hunted the Bighorn Craigs and stuff. So it was, yeah, it's just a great, a great remote area of Idaho. It's about as remote as you can get. So yeah,
Mm,
so we hiked in, um, and you're just hiking nonstop. You're on this death march coming in, and then you get into the unit, and there's no sheep, and then you get up in the sheep area, and you just start glassing, and that's why optics for me is the most important thing, especially sheep hunting, sheep, goat, any of that stuff, where you have to sit and glass for, and it's not like, hey, I got to go glass for 5 minutes here and 10 minutes there. You're glassing literally for hours. I mean,
mm,
you're going to wear out the butt of your pants before you wear out your boots on those
wow.
hunts, because you can sit on one spot and you're glassing all day. I mean, that's it's a and I'm an antsy hunter. Now maybe not so much, but the older I get, but I want to cover ground. I want to do stuff. But sheep hunting, it's the key is finding them and then moving in on them, and then it's like every other typical hunt. You got to watch the wind. You got to watch, the vision. You got to, and up there you're kicking rocks where you
Mhm,
don't mean to. You're crossing cliffs, rock faces. You're doing different stuff. So it's a different type of hunting from that way. But we would go set up a camp, and then before daylight, sometimes 30 minutes before daylight, you'd break down your camp, and then and you would, yeah, just load everything up on your back and you take off. And we had predetermined spots that we would go to that we were hunting. So we had like areas, so we would hunt in one area, and then if we didn't see anything, we knew by that evening we want to go to this other area and glass from there.
mhm,
So we'd spend all morning doing one hunt, and then and going from there. So it's another one, strategy, but it's like everything else. You plan something, and then you spot something or you see something else, and you're like, all right, change of venues. But then you gotta recalculate, okay, where do we get water at this new place? If we veer from the direction, how do we, sustain life? How do we, and I'm not trying to make it sound like it's, oh, you're gonna die out there, but nobody's coming to rescue you. I mean, it's,
right.
and
And
so
it's not
there's,
like you're walking back to the cabin at the end of the day.
yeah, there's
You're
no,
the job doesn't end.
no, there's no foot massage or nothing at the end. You're just, and I lost on my hunt, and I've been in there a few times. I've been in helping buddies
Mhm,
hunt, and I went in there, and I think when I went in, it was a pretty short hunt. I think we planned on 9 or 10 days, and I think I did it in six,
yep,
maybe, or 6 or 7 days. But I had lost tons of weight, so just going in there, and then I lost about 2 pounds a day. Just hiking back in there, and I was so, yeah, you're just used to, you open up a little beef jerky stick and you're like, oh, that's so much energy, but it's just, you just never get enough.
yeah,
You just never get enough, and you have to look out for blisters. And, if you get blisters and you're back in there, you're relying on your feet. It's just like, suck it up, buttercup, right? Like
yeah,
you put on the tape on top of it, and you pop 4 Advil in the morning, 4 in the evening, and no matter what, and you just, you're just trying to do what you can to brutalize yourself. So yeah, my wife, she hears my story sometimes, and she's like, that just doesn't sound fun, and I'm like, it is for some reason. I mean, there's just such a draw to that
yeah,
area. And
yeah.
so, but
Well,
it's funny because, typically people don't share their hunting spots, and I'll tell you, I hunted Unit 27 too in Idaho. You can look it up, and and I get guys all the time because we made posts about it online, and we talked about it, and we, kind of documented our hunt and what we did. So when people draw it every year, or at least every other year, I get phone calls from people, because it's
wow,
like, you know, one of four people that drew that tag, and they're like, hey, I saw online that you hunted this, and I have an extensive trail map. I've done locations where we spotted things change over the year, but in general, it's going to be the same. It's
mm,
the same stuff. So I share all of that stuff if if people have questions. And typically, sheep hunting, goat hunting, when they're once in a lifetime, yeah, people share that information. That's one good thing about those critters because
Sure.
they're not going to hunt it again. So
Yeah. So when you spot one, go ahead. So when you spot one, like, do you just say, "Oh, there's one. I'm gonna take that one," or are you looking at horn size? And I mean, how?
Yeah, so we it just depends. It depends on the situation. So my situation. So we hiked in. I think it was 2 days or 3 days before I saw sheep,
Wow.
and so we went up on this little deal. We ended up cross country, and so it would have been 3 days. So it would have been on day four probably. Um, and we're like, okay, here's the sheep. So my buddy was on one mountain and I cut across. So I went down this canyon, went up this other side. There's three rams in there. All of them were legal. One was barely, and then one was a middle one, and the one was a lot better. And so, hiked down, went up to this other side, snuck up into this canyon, got up to where I was like, oh, I'm gonna be perfect, laid out perfect, got in there and they were gone. And I'm just like, and I had ditched. I wanted to go lightweight. I thought in and out in like an hour, 2 hours tops. Well, I get over there, so I have no water, I have no anything else, and it's late morning, and we just get there. So I pull back out, and I you go to the side, and I radio my buddy, and I'm like, dude, I could not find him. I said, can you see him over here? And he's like, yep, I can't see him, and stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go back in here later. So, yeah, I was there. I just kind of took a nap for an hour, just kind of rested and dry, and I actually videotaped my face. My lips were so dry they were sticking together, and there was just no water around. I'm like, how do animals survive up here? And
Oh, man.
so then, just after an hour or two, I started hiking back in there, and I was just started cross countrying, and then I saw one. I saw one of the three, and I started videotaping it, recording it, and then I saw the second one, and and you're looking at that, and I'm like, yeah, that's a good ram, but I couldn't find the big one, and I'm like, where's that ram? Where's that ram? And finally, I'm like, I'm just going to shoot this one. It's a good ram. For me, and so I shot it, and then they took off. The bigger one was just below me. He was like a cliff type thing, and it was just, and it ran out, and it's out there. I mean, 60 yards. I mean, I could
Yeah.
have shot it with a bow, let alone the gun, and it's standing there broadside, and you're 15 miles from the trailhead, and you could easily take. I could have took that one, but
Yep.
but I shot the ram that I chose that I did, and I was super happy about it, and so yeah, I got back on the horn with my buddy, and I was just like, he says. He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going back to camp." Like I just mentally, I wasn't there. I was shutting down because I just
Yep.
was dehydrated, and he said, "Well, go look at your RAM." And I was like, "Nah, I'm just." I mean, and it was only 60 yards away, but I was just so focused on getting water because I was,
Yeah.
So but so he kind of walked me through it, and he walked me over there, and I got to the RAM, and then so I gutted it just, and I walked straight back down to the bottom, and then stuck my head in the water, and I was so dry I couldn't even take a drink of water. It
Mm.
was just, yeah, it was just bad. But so we ended up, that morning, woke up at 3 in the morning. I woke up, and my buddy woke up too. We started talking. He goes, "You want to head out?" I'm like, "Yep." So we just started heading out, and we got to the ram at daylight, took some pictures, packed it up, and then hiked all the way out. I think it was like 14 miles out of that country, just and it's just, and mentally, at one point I just like, I can't go anymore. My buddy was like, well, I'm gonna go hike down the road. So I seen him going, and in my head I was just thinking, if I don't follow him, I'm not gonna know how to get out of here. I'm just not gonna, mentally, I just wasn't there. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, so I just started following him, and then I don't know, it was about a mile later. He stopped, and I sat down next to him, and he looked over. He goes, "Oh, I didn't think you were behind me." Like we're just, we're death walking out of there, and then, but we hiked all day, and then it was into the night when we finally got back to the truck, and
Wow.
I was literally lifting my back because we had all of our camp, we had the full, and I brought out the full hide and everything else, and it's just so heavy. It was, it's just, but you do it, not that I'm a, super hunter or any of that stuff. You have to, because there's no other choice. Like
Yeah.
there's no, hey, I'm going to give up, and I'm at a aid station where somebody's going to pick me up a little bit. It's just, you got to hike out of there. So, um,
I think all of those thoughts would be going through my head before I pulled the trigger. You know,
Yeah.
I just had this vision of squeezing the trigger and going, "Okay, wait a minute. Are you ready? Are you
Yeah.
really ready for what this is gonna mean?"
Yeah. Well, you have to be ready before you go in there, but you can't until you've lived it, until you've done it. I mean, you could talk because my biggest deal, I was asking my buddies that have hunted it. I'm like, hey, is there elk and deer back in there? And they're like, oh yeah, there's elk and deer. Not a whole lot, but there is. And I was like, maybe I'll go elk hunting in there. And they're just like, "Are you nuts?" And stuff, and it's and because you don't realize it until you hike it up. I think it's kinda like childbirth though, because I look at my wife and we have 5 kids and stuff, and, after the first kid, you're like, "We are not gonna have any more kids."
Yep.
My wife will never go through that again, and after about a year or 2, she's like, "I think I'm ready for another kid." I'm like, "Did you forget how
Right.
that whole brutalness?" And hunting, I think, is the same way, and it's just there's a sense of accomplishment. It's just, it's man against beast and the
Yeah.
elements more than anything else. And non-hunters can say, okay, well, you can go in the back country and not have to shoot something, and which is true. I mean, you can. It's just, I love just backpacking. I love going
Sure.
back in that country, and that type of country. It's the fishing. You go back there fishing. No one's fishing those lakes back there. It's just,
Yeah.
so.
There's
But yeah,
it's something about that challenge, right? To really push yourself to,
yeah, yeah,
to see, "Can I do this?" And to
yeah.
come out the other side of it, there's a confidence that comes with that, I think.
Yeah, and it's definitely confidence, not cockiness. I mean, it's you have to be confident, and then you just have to, and it's and sheep hunting is pretty cool too, because you can hear, and the way we found them is you could hear them smashing horns.
Mm,
We were there and we were looking, and you hear that noise, you're like, hey, did a rock just fall? Because randomly rocks fall, they just do whatever, and they were like, no, there's a distinct crack. It's
yeah,
kind of like when an elk bugles or something like when you hear it, like the hair on the back of your neck stands up, and it's just you're just like, oh my gosh, like that's what all this preparation was
mm,
for, and training. I mean, brutal training. I was cutting a push mower grass with backpacks on and ankle weights, and it was just you can never get prepared enough.
yeah,
You can just, you could, so you hear all these crazy things. And I mentioned Cameron Haynes a lot, and
yep,
stuff, and just the training and stuff that he does, and he has that nobody cares, work harder. It's true. I mean, that's just so like, you could say, oh, God, I ran 5 miles, whatever, and you're like, so, you
so
know, do it again. Like lose that extra pound.
yeah,
It
you're a
makes a
quarter of the
difference.
way there.
Yeah. So, but when you're younger and dumber, and
Mhm,
you're just brutally just going after it, and stuff,
yeah,
and like I said, I've hunted a lot of different places, and now I think it out a little bit more strategic, and I look for exit strategies, and
sure.
get that helicopter on the speed dial of the satellite phone or something. But so no, that was the other thing. I actually looked into getting a helicopter to drop me off back there, but you can't land. You can't have
Right,
motorized vehicles inside of the wilderness and
yep.
stuff. And I'm like, just get me close and I'll jump out of the helicopter. I mean, get me within 10 feet, I'll just bail out. And but yeah, they don't they do it because of the rules and legality behind it. Because if they had to touch or something, it's
Yep, yep.
so, but
Mm,
it's stuff you think about, how do we circumvent it? But the whole process, once you've done it, it's, especially when you talk with someone else that has done it,
mhm,
then you're like, okay, it's just awesome.
yeah, yep. Those are gonna be the only people that really know,
Yeah, yeah.
other people that have done it.
No,
So,
and it's before I went. I mean, I was talking to guys for 4 or 5 years, and, talking about the and in my head, I'm like, "Oh, I get it," but I didn't,
yeah,
like, it's just, I could picture because 'cause I've hunted elk and everything else. I've hunted, South Island, New Zealand. We hunt the Alps down there, and, you do different stuff, but it's, like I said, every place has its unique challenges,
yeah, yeah.
but it's, once you live there, you're like, "Okay," especially that country. Like, when you talk about the Bighorn Craigs. It's just yeah, it's just awesome. Yeah,
Mhm,
it's just the best way to describe it. I mean, you talk about God's creations and stuff, and you
yeah,
sit there and you see the sunrise and the sunset in that country, and you're just like, man, this is just magnificent.
yeah. It's just like being in Harrisburg, isn't it?
Almost like that. Yeah, Pennsylvania was just like that.
That's like that.
Yeah,
So let's go to New Zealand.
sure.
What
Yeah.
was what was that trip?
So my dad was working in Africa. He was working for Chevron, and it was a friend of a friend type deal.
Hmm.
And we flew over there, and they have yeah, it's a different hunting over there too. It was just kind of I flew over there, and instead of my dad coming home, he gave me his plane ticket, and then so I flew over to New Zealand. He went over straight from where he was working, and he was working in Africa and then Papua New Guinea. And anyway, friends of friends, it's always the best way to do it. But we got over there, talked to an outfitter, and said, "Hey, how do we go out and get chamois and tar?" And he's like, "Well, we can hike in." And we're like, "How long does it take?" And they're like, 3 days. Probably takes 2.5 to 3 days to get up to where we need it to be. And we're like, okay. And he goes, or you could take a helicopter. And we're like, well, how much does that cost? And I forgot what it was. I think $600 or something. And and we're like, well, how long will it take? And they're like, about 15 minutes. And we're like, okay, that's and for us, we're limited. I think I went over for 10 days, 10, 11 days on that trip. But I'm like, dude, eating up 3 days of hiking in, 3 days out, and then packing, so we actually went in on a helicopter. They flew us up, and we set camp up, and ended up shooting a tar up there, and then came back. The helicopter flew us, and the clouds came in, and actually we got stranded on top of the mountain because the helicopters have to have line of sight. They have to have
Hmm.
different stuff. So they tried to. So we were caught up there for a while. It was kind of interesting, a different deal. And then we flew, and then this is South Island, New Zealand. Then we went down to Haast. There was a place down there, and there's an outfitter that flew out of there, and you just pay by the hour, and they fly you up. And you can actually shoot out of a helicopter.
Oh, really?
So we ended up shooting some critters out of a helicopter, and I got some chamois and tar and stuff. So and that's just goat type things, right? Chamois and
Yeah.
tar, they're just a goat type thing. But so yeah, it was a little bit different, a different type of hunting. There's less rules. There's no dipping. Like getting your critters back from Africa is a whole different procedure
Mm.
than out of New Zealand. In New Zealand, we salted them down, threw them in a burlap sack, and threw them on its luggage. So it was super simple. There wasn't nothing crazy about it. But there's a lot of hunting places down there where you can go shoot red stag and stuff, which
Mm.
New Zealand's famous for. Big dollar operations. We just kind of did friend of a friend, private type
Sure.
stuff, and hunted. So I ended up shooting a red stag. I ended up shooting two red stags actually, but small ones, and I ended up not bringing them back
Yeah.
and stuff. But yeah, it's and those guys. I mean, those cowboys, the helicopter, the Kiwi cowboys is what they call them. The helicopter pilots are probably the craziest people I've ever met in my life. I mean,
Wow.
just those guys they bank helicopters like you're flying over this hill, and then you get at these group of trees. They turn the helicopter sideways and they skim the top of these trees. And I'm just, oh yeah, I was definitely puking on it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it definitely got to my stomach. But
Oh,
it was it's just a different experience, right? Like every place you go, it's a little bit different, and there's different opportunities and different stuff. And I've never had money, like a lot
mhm.
of these guys, they're going out and they're hunting, private ranches, and they're hunting, high end outfitters and stuff. I just never had that money to be able to do that. So I make phone calls, and
Yep.
and I know a lot of people now, just over the years. Um, so I'm always like, how can I do this on the cheap, And so I
Yeah.
don't get the class, 5-star, kind of. But
Red
I'm
carpet treatment.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm okay
Yeah.
with that, right? So I'm gonna
Yeah.
cook my own food. I'm gonna whatever it takes, right? Like I don't need that. So even though I'm hunting all these places and all these, I guess you'd call it exotic places or whatever, but it's typically, how do we get there on the cheap so I can do more of it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
uh,
And I think there's you've talked about these different places and the experience. You've said the experience of it, a number of times, and that's been something that I've been pretty committed to with my kids. Is that I want to make sure that I'm teaching them. Yeah, it's good to think about your future and to think about retirement. Yeah, you don't want to be in a whole lot of debt, but you only get one time around, and so
yeah,
let's have these experiences. Let's do some of these crazy things that you guys want to do, and so I think that's important. It's
yeah.
we always joke, we say we're cheating life. When I remember sitting in Colorado Springs one time, and we were having a cigar and a glass of brandy and on our
With your
back porch.
kids?
No, not this
But
was before kids. A couple buddies. I was out there for school, and we're sitting. The house we rented had a deck, and we were done with class for the day, and we're looking up at Pikes Peak, and that's where the saying came from: "Is man, it doesn't get any better than this. We're cheating life," and it really that's kind of stuck. That's been a great mentality of we want to get everything we can out of this life because we're only getting one time around. So
yeah, yep.
those experiences are huge, and they
They
stay with
are, and I've actually, I mean, I've taken pictures of everything, and I have a whole handful of pictures here at the office that, where I'm calling you from, and it's I can look at those, and it just brings back so many memories, and I'm like, man, I've done a lot, and
you.
stuff. And it's kind of hard to put them all into perspective, and I always think, you know what, my stories aren't. They're okay, but nobody wants to listen to them, and that's my mentality. But so I thought, I should put a book together. I should do something, and but I think people should go out and live their own, make their
Yeah.
own stories, make their own stuff. But sometimes you can't, so you got to live vicariously through people, and I've done a lot of that too. I love listening to stories that other people tell me,
Mhm.
and just to kind of hear their experience and how they've done stuff. And
Yeah.
but I've made a lot myself, and
Yeah.
and I talk to a lot of new hunters, with my clothing line, and stuff. It's a lot of people getting into the industry that don't want to spend a fortune on clothes,
Yep.
and so I get a lot of people in, and and it's interesting, just talking to them and what they, they're like, oh, you've done this and that, you must be like the best hunter. And I'm like, I've messed up more times hunting, and blown stuff. And I was talking about another hunt. I remember going to California archery hunting. I did a ranch hunt over there, the first time I ever shot a hog. And I was hog hunting. I shot one, and they had some exotics. I was like, I want to go shoot an exotic, but I wasn't proficient in the bow yet, and so I ended up like these exotics came in, and I'm like, oh, I want to shoot this ram, and pulled back my bow, and I'm just perfectly, I thought everything was going good, released it, and I heard twang, like what the thwunk, like a just a like what the heck. I shot it in its horn. I was just, because what I did, I was aiming, I drew back, I was right on the vitals, and I peeked up to go see the horns, and I
Yep.
let go, and it just stuck in the side. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then anyway, I went back to the main camp, and I told the guy, like, dude, I just did the stupidest thing ever. And he was there, and he was holding it together good, but he was laughing. He goes, yeah, he goes, I saw it through the binocs. I was watching. He goes, I seen the arrow fall out of the horn later. And he goes, you're fine. Just, you can go back and get another one the next day and stuff. And I'm just, dude, I felt like the dumbest hunter ever, and it's just stuff like that. It causes experience, and stuff. And,
Yeah.
but you learn, you're like, okay, don't peek, like when you
Yep.
pick your
Yep.
animal, you don't peek at the horns. And that was one of the things. My boy shot a huge, he was an 8 by 10 buck. Um, so it scored 209. It's phenomenal buck that. And the thing I told him, I said, once you find, don't look at his horns ever. Don't
Yep.
ever look at his horn. Put the crosshairs on the vitals. Worry about putting it down. You'll have the rest of your life to look at the horns. You
That's
know what I
right.
mean? So just because of my experience, I mean, just you peek once at the horns, you're missing. That's
Yeah.
just how, and that's just stuff that people can tell you, and but until you experience it, because I'm just like, what Jack A would ever do that, right? Like, how bad of a hunter do you have to be to shoot something in the? But it happened.
Well, I
So.
can tell you right now you're in good company because I hit a whitetail in the antlers, and it ran by two other guys that were hunting our property, and they both got on the radio like, did that deer that just went by have an antler or have an arrow in its antler? I just yeah, you're not alone.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure it happens, and
Yep.
most people don't share stories like that because they
No.
don't want to be embarrassed. But it's just how it goes and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah,
What?
so I'm just trying to think whether so I went down to New Mexico. They have a once in a lifetime oryx hunt down there. They actually imported gemsbuck and oryx,
Huh?
and a buddy of me drew it, and we went down there, and it's on the military base down there. So you have to show up, and you have to get the briefing, and then you get the day to hunt. You got to be out. You can't bring any cameras. Like, there's a lot of rules that they have down there, but that was a pretty fun hunt too. But we shot a lot of funny pictures after we shot them. I bought a lick 'em and stick 'em bow, and I made a loincloth. And so I was, just having fun. And those are the type of things that I actually seen on Instagram. I don't know what it was, a year or two ago. Somebody had seen my picture online and posted it with another one on one of these making fun of, hunter types, stupid
Mhm.
people. And yeah, they were making fun of me. I was the guy in the loincloth that was holding a lick 'em and stick 'em bow on top of an oryx, it's just funny. And but those are the things we like to do. We went
Yep.
on another deer hunt. We all bought fro wigs. It
Mhm.
was October time, and Halloween, so we went to Walmart and picked up some fro wigs and just had some fun and just did
Wow.
different silly stuff. But you know, those are the things you could look back and giggle about. And
Yeah, yeah.
and like you said, I talk about pulling my kids out of school to take them hunting, all the time.
What
And
yeah,
you know,
tell what's your saying?
don't let education get in the way, or don't let school get in the way of a good education.
There it
Yeah,
is. We
yeah,
use that all the time.
yeah. You don't let school get in the way of a good education, because you do, right? Like, you take your
Yeah,
kids out, and you go have and you get some one-on-one with them and other stuff. And when you're excited about it too, they're going to be even that much more excited about it. And
yeah,
so but yeah, my oldest boy, I don't think he's shot anything in the last few years. And he's like, last time I shot something, I was with you, Dad. But I've been busy the last few years and haven't, just gotten after it with the camo company and other stuff, and just limited on time.
yeah, yeah.
But this year we all have a tag in the same area, so hopefully, and I can care less about horns now. I got a garage full of them, and I say that I'd still shoot a big one over a little one. But
Oh, sure.
so I'm sure we're gonna see a spike elk, and we're just gonna shoot it, and stuff. And like I said, I can care less about pulling the trigger. Just want to get out with my boys again, and go shoot something. And they're in way better shape than I am. But hopefully I'll be back in good shape by this fall.
Yeah. So,
So
it's mostly muley where you are as
yeah,
far as
yep,
deer?
yep, mule deer where I'm at. So there's some whitetail. If you go up northern Idaho, there's some whitetail and stuff up there too. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've told you that before. I've never shot a whitetail, and
I know. I was
like,
gonna pull it out of you.
never shot a whitetail. Like I said, I
You're
keep
not a real
thinking,
hunter.
yeah, I know. I'm one of those fake hunters. I've shot everything, but I haven't shot a koala yet either, I guess. But if you want
Yeah,
to, but
yeah.
pretty
Those
much,
vicious
yeah,
koalas.
they attack you and stuff. But yeah, no, I like mule deer hunting. I mean, it's just, there's something about it. The biggest mule deer I've ever killed was in New Mexico. I went down there on a hunt down there, and that's probably the last story we'll have time to tell you. But on that one, I have a buddy he was pretty picky. He wanted a certain, over a 180 class buck, and we came across this deer, and it wasn't quite 180. And he can score him pretty good on the deal. So anyway, he called me over, and I ran over and got down and seen him. I was like, "You're not going to shoot him?" I was like, "Dude, that's definitely 180." And he said, "Nope, it's not 180." So I was like, so I shot. It ended up being like 178, something like that. It was super close, right? Um, but I don't know what the heck happened. It's just another one of those deals. It was kind of walking, and it was kind of going up this other side, not far away. I mean, 100 yards. So I mean, it was. Oh, I was gonna say it was a Trump shot. I can't say
Yeah.
that. It was a, but no, it was. um, I know that you can edit that part out. I don't care. So no, a chip shot. That's what I meant to say. It was a chip
Yeah,
shot.
yeah.
But yeah, I pulled the trigger, and that thing kicked, and I thought it's going down, and it took off running up this little bank and across this flats, and I was just like, what in the heck just happened? Like, how did I miss so bad? And I was like, there's no way. I had to have hit it. So, like a good hunter might, we're like, yeah, we didn't, there's no way I could have hit it. I just got scared. Went over there. Sure as heck, there was blood over there. And then so we tracked it across his flats. And then I heard somebody shooting on the other side of these flat. And I'm
Oh,
just like, that guy shot my deer. So I just took off running. I'm like, I'm gonna go. Like, I never worry about it, but this was a buck. It was a
yeah.
great buck for me, and stuff. And anyway, so I went over there, and this guy had this little 2 point down, and I'm like, "Yep, not my buck. Congratulations, great job." And so I went to this other canyon, and my buddies were filming, and I walked through this canyon, and this deer jumped up. It was bedded down. It jumped up. I shot, tipped right over. So we have it all on film. It was pretty cool. Walked
Wow.
up to it. We couldn't find a bullet hole besides the one I knocked it down with. Ended up looking over it. I had hit it in the back ankle. I
Oh, you
shot it in the No, I shot in the ankle. It was bleeding from his ankle, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, I shot it in the ankle. We tracked it down and killed it. I mean, and it was just. But fortunately, it had bedded down. Right, it went about a
yeah,
mile
yeah,
and went to this next canyon, and you could predict kind of where they're going to go just
yeah.
by the terrain and other stuff. And so we jumped it again, and so that's ended up where I had hit it, and
Wow.
tracked it down and shot it. So yeah, it was pretty good. But that's the best buck I've ever killed. I've never killed a
Yeah.
huge buck or anything. But 180,
That's That's a
180
nice
bucks
buck.
good. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that
So,
that's I'd
um,
get that mounted.
yeah, so it's,
Yeah,
but yeah, so we had that and, yeah, just I mean, endless stories we could talk
yeah,
about, I started thinking about my elk stories and I was like, "Oh, yeah," and I've done, we've done Utah, uh, and
mhm,
Wyoming and Idaho and Colorado, like, we find a lot of the western states and that kinda stuff and, bugling in elk and,
yeah,
elk hunting, we've talked about everything else, but, I mean, I that's probably my funnest. I love elk hunting. I love the,
uh-huh,
chasing them. They're just you know, a
yep.
majestic animal, so, um,
Roosevelt? What, um
yeah, big elk, whatever.
okay,
That's my technical.
big elk. I know there's different subspecies or whatever of elk, and I didn't know if
Yeah, I was gonna look up the Latin words for it just to be, like, sound impressive, but
yeah,
I'm a
I think
redneck and
isn't it
can't read.
wapiti? Wapiti's the native name, right?
Wapiti. Yeah,
Wapiti?
yeah, the great Wapiti, I think it's
That's
so,
funny.
no,
Yeah,
that's,
cool.
yeah, so elk hunting is probably I started counting up, and I don't even know how many elk I've taken in my lifetime, probably 20, 25 elk, I don't
Wow,
know, and once again, that's just something, or in Idaho, and we're fortunate enough to have some critters here, and elk
yeah,
hunting's not the same like it used to be, it's a lot harder, they're, fewer and far between,
yeah,
like what they used to be, but, and I got stories and, when you talk about stories, we have stories where we killed 4 elk within 24 hours. I got some great stories and, yeah, and it's, and other days, you kill 2, 3 elk out of different herds, like just
wow.
different stuff. And, yeah, I don't know if you have time for one more quick story
Oh,
or if
yeah,
we're
absolutely.
running out. So I'll tell you an
No,
elk
good.
story real quick. So we have it to where if we shoot something, we call up buddies and then they come help pack it out, right? So I had a buddy call me up and, he was like, "Hey, I got an elk and I need some help packing up." Sure as heck. So 3 of us, I'll come up. His son came up, and then one of my buddies, my son, and then anyway, so we went to the lodge in the morning because he's just like, just come up right at daylight. We'll eat breakfast. So we're sitting at breakfast, and another guy comes right through the door, goes to my buddy, and he goes, "Hey, do you got your elk tag?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "There's an elk down the road." He says, "Come with me." And so he just took off, and we're just like, what just happened? So he left his breakfast there and everything, and we're like, he knows where we're going, so we bailed out of there, not knowing what had happened. Well, anyway, he went down the road a couple of miles. There was these elk that fed across the road. We're up in this deal, and he got out the truck and ended up shooting an elk. And then they drug it out whole, which you never do with an elk.
Right,
And
right.
so my buddy shot an elk the night before, right at dark. He shot one right in the morning. So we were hiking up to go get my buddy's elk. Well, halfway up this mountain, there's an elk herd. And so my son had a tag and so did his son. Well, they lined up. His son shot, killed the elk. So now we have 3 elk down, right? So and they were there and I told my buddy, I was like, "Hey, we're just gonna go to the top of this ridge and just go look and we'll just meet you." So they went to go field dress to go because we still have to go pack out my buddy's elk. Anyway, we saw an elk herd. We took off after it, and we chased it down way into the back. And then my boy ended up shooting an elk back there too. So, and so
Man,
we just ditched my buddy. We he had his elk and his, and so yeah, we had 4 elk on the hill, and then
wow.
so the guy that shot the elk in the morning, he had come back and helped my buddy because we know the area really well. So it's
Yeah,
just amazing how it happens sometimes, and other days you're out there 7 days and you don't even see one,
wow.
so it's just not, I mean, it's not like they're everywhere, but just some days when it works out.
You caught him at
Um,
the right time and
yeah.
yeah.
No,
Wow.
same thing. We had another trip where my buddy shot one the night before. My boy came back. There's 2 of us the next day, and I ended up shooting an elk, and my buddy shot an elk. And the one I shot, I tried to get my boy on it. His gun wasn't ready, and the elk took off. And I'm like, I had a tag. I was like, okay, you're not gonna let the elk get away. But so my boy was bummed, and he was just like, and this was I think a year before or something like that. And he's like, "I'm gonna be the only kid at school that didn't shoot an elk." I'm like, "You're gonna be the only kid that packed out 3 elk this weekend, right?" So so yeah, it's just crazy how it works out sometime. But yeah, and you talk about heavy packing out elk.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a little bit more than just throwing a deer on your back.
yeah, yeah.
So
Wow. Phew.
yeah, no, just stories all day long. We have other
And
ones where we
they're jacking up the out of the non-resident prices pretty good out there now, right?
they are, yeah. But at some point, doesn't matter, right? So like
Right.
whether you pay, and I don't even know, I can't even tell you what the price tags are, but if you're paying, I know that one year I drew Wyoming and Utah the same year, and both were super low chances of me getting. That year that I drew in Utah, I only had one preference point. People with 9 or 10 points weren't drawing, and so I drew it, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, hey, I got my once in a lifetime tag in Utah, pretty much. But yeah, it hit your card for, I can't remember, 600-700 bucks,
Yeah.
and at that point, it's, I don't know, it doesn't, it's not like you're hiring an outfitter.
Right.
But yeah,
Right.
it's expensive. It does add up, and you put everything else into it, just the fuel and the stuff. But
Yeah.
hunting's something I've just never mind spending money on. It's
No.
just like the lunches I don't either. I eat out every day at lunch. I never bring my own lunch, or one, it's unhealthy, but it's okay. I like, certain things I don't mind spending money on. But
Yeah.
yeah, hunting is one
I'm
of
the
them. I'm
same.
just,
Yeah.
whatever it takes. I can work a few extra hours. So.
Right.
But I think Randy Newberg was the one that, and I don't remember his exact quote, but he says, "You'll run out of health before you run out of money," which isn't quite true, but it's that way. If you save your whole life and
Yeah.
you're trying to save up, and you just don't spend your money, you talk about making memories and all that stuff, but if you don't spend the money while you're alive,
Yep.
it's I don't expect my parents to leave me anything, and
Nope.
just do what you need to do and live life. And I kind of live the same philosophy, but
Yeah. I agree.
um,
I
yeah.
agree. So, I want to close with two things. One, where can people find you? And two, what's new with Catch and Release? Any new
Yeah.
stuff coming out? I know you got a deal going on the four-way shirts, and
Yeah.
actually that
So,
ends tomorrow, right?
yeah, yep. So that's we had a buy two get one free, and people are gonna listen to this podcast later. If they're interested in buying a couple of shirts, just let me know, and I'll still give them the deal.
Okay.
But yeah, you could find me at catchandrelease.us is the website. So it's super easy to remember. It's catchandrelease.us, and
.us.
.us. Yep. And then since being a US based company, I can have that as an extension. And so yeah, so I have that, and then social media platforms, Catch and Release Camo. Um, and you can find me on Facebook as well. But the website's probably the best bet to get a hold of me. And then yeah, I answer all my own emails. Everything that comes through, it's either me, or I'll forward it to my wife, and she looks a lot better and she's a lot nicer than I am. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and
but
she's quicker to respond.
she is, yeah. So she's less, I'd say less busy, but she has her hands full too. So yeah, she actually does all my shipping and everything. So she's a gem. But yeah, so just get a hold of me through the website, and that's probably the best way to get me. So if anyone has any questions, I mean, even if it's just about hunting, I love questions. And there's only so many hours during the day, but I'll answer any of the questions you have. I
Yeah.
mean, I just love to help people and love to see the enthusiasm and stuff. And especially kids. Like, we specialize in kids camo. Like, we have trade-in programs, we have everything else, and we're expanding on the kid side a little bit right now. I'm looking at getting some lightweight hoodies, and stuff.
Mm,
I have the reversible shirts,
yep.
and I have the base layer shirts, but now we're going to get some lightweight ones with the hoods on it, and we're doing that, but it's going to be kids sizes first, right?
Yeah.
And so that's
Yeah.
what we're going to do, and then expand to the adult sizes, unlike the other companies where you get the small through 2XL for the adults, and then if they sell, then you start getting them for kids. So yeah, so we are expanding on that. And we launched our boot line this year. We have hunting boots have trade-ins as well,
Mm,
so when the kids outgrow them, they can trade them back in for a small fee, and stuff. So yeah, it's really it takes a while to get this program going, but this time of year, man, people are starting to message me left and right, and they're like, hey, we need trade-ins, how do we do this? First time buyers
yep.
that don't understand the way. They're like, how complicated is this? I'm like, it's super simple. Go to
Super
this
easy.
way, click on the button, send your old ones back in, get a brand new set. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's it's pretty good.
And we're gonna be we'll have a Catch and Release booth at there's a bow a 3D shoot at Swain
Okay.
um, this fall, and so we'll have a booth there for people on the East Coast. If they're or if you want to reach out to Beards Creek, I can ship it from here too.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we want to get a lot of product into your area too, that people could just pick them up and stuff from your area. And then the other one is that Harrisburg show that I went to this year was the first year I was there. I had a small 10 by 10 booth. You came out, along with a couple other people, and I mean, really enjoyed the company, and really great meeting you and hanging out. You know, I'm going to rent an Airbnb this year and have some extra rooms. I mean, it's
Yep.
just to make sure that if people want to come out and, but I tripled the size of my booth. I went
Yeah.
to a 10 by 30. So I'm thinking about, last year I bought some this and that, and I think
Yep.
I'm gonna have a couch in it this year. I'm just gonna, because I wanted to be a place where people can just sit and visit and talk and
Yep.
share hunting stories and stuff too, and
Yep.
just have a good old time. So but yeah, we'll kind of see how it goes. I'm looking forward to it. I actually cut down on most of my other shows. I'm doing the Salt Lake show, the Western Expo. That's the biggest one that I do out here.
Yep.
And then I'm going to do that Pennsylvania show just because mostly because I want to visit you guys, but
Yeah.
hopefully can sell some stuff out there. And yeah, and then I'll do the local Boise show, but that's about it. I kind of cancel all my other ones this year, but just
Wow.
busy, just
Yeah.
busy. So
Busy. Cool. Well, thank you, Moosie.
yeah,
It's so funny. I was trying to line up guests, and I'm like, well, I haven't talked to Moosie in a while. I'll act like I'm concerned about how his heart condition is, and then I'll hit him up for a podcast. So
yeah, I appreciate you asking me several times how. Oh yeah, wait, you didn't. Yeah, no, everything's going
that's
good
not
with it.
true. I talked to you like shortly after
That's
the
right.
surgery.
I know you
Oh,
did.
you're
So
throwing me under the bus.
no, you have nothing but love for me. I do appreciate that. But yeah, no, I'm
I wouldn't
available and
wait. I
stuff. And
wouldn't go that far.
yeah, I
But
would.
yeah,
I would. I know how it is. But we yeah, no, the I love talking, and I mean I love talking with you. It's just an easy conversation, and we got
yep,
stories for days. I just, if people like it, drop me a line, let me know how you like it, and then we'll put
yeah,
on some other ones. We got tons of stories for sure.
yep.
And a lot of helpful tips too, if you want to go through and talk about Western hunting,
Oh
we could have
yeah,
a show, and I know you have a lot of great guests and a lot of educated people coming in, but if you want to just talk general hunting and specifics, or
yeah.
pull together some stuff, we'll get some questions answered. So I
Cool.
just I love seeing the success of other people.
That'd be great. All right, man.
Yes, sir. Have a good evening, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.